Hello friends, welcome into my channel. Today on Dream9 Design, I'm going to show you how to make a basic granny square. There are so many fun options that you can do when making granny squares. There's so many different projects and color schemes that you can make. So if you are new to crochet or you're just coming back for a refresher on the basics, I'm glad you're here. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you feel inclined, and leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of today's video. Well, let's jump into how to make a basic granny square. Now, materials for this project could vary. You can use basically any size yarn and hook that go together. Now, for today's demonstration, I'm just going to be using some acrylic yarn in a size 4, and I will also be using an H 5mm crochet hook. Now I'm going to just do this in one color. I will have a separate video on if you want to do this in multiple colors, but I do have a few options here, and I think for today's video we'll probably go with this really bright green. So let's get started. If you are very beginner basic, there are a lot of videos out there on how to do this. If you'd like to see me do some basic videos, let me know in the comments down below as well. But to start our granny square, we are just going to chain 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. Let's go crazy. Let's make it 4. Now, what we want to do is we want to make this into a ring that we're going to be working into to start. So right here where we began, we're going to insert our hook, pull our yarn through, and then we're going to continue to pull this through here. But what we want to do is make sure that we're kind of putting our finger in the middle so that we know where we're going to be working into, okay? So just like that. So now we kind of have this little ring going on, and that's where we're going to be working into. So what we're going to do is we are going to chain up 2, and then we're going to yarn over, and into that ring we are going to make 2 double crochets. So pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Okay, so now we have, this is going to count as our first stitch, this chain right here. So here's going to be our second stitch. So now we're going to make another double crochet back into that same circle that we have. And I just like to work over this tail, but you can always just pull it to the back. So now we're going to go in and make another double crochet. Perfect. So now we have one part done. From here, we're going to make a chain of 1, so we're going to yarn over and pull through. And now we're going to make another little cluster, because this is going to be our first cluster. So now we are going to do 3 more double crochets into the ring. So there's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. Now if you need to pause the video while you get to this point, that's totally okay. So go ahead and pause and do your 3. Now I just like to pull it over a little bit just to make some more room. Now we're going to be making 2 more of these clusters because we want to have a total of 4. So we're going to chain up 1. Let me grab some more yarn here. Chain up 1, and now we're going to put 3 more double crochets back into that ring. So there's 1, here is 2, and here's 3. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 clusters. Now we need to do 1 more. So as you see, it's getting a little tight, so I'm just going to pull my stitches this way. Now we will chain up 1, yarn over, and make 3 more double crochets into that ring. 2 and 3. Okay, so we need to make our last chain of 1. And now, as you see, here's our chain from the beginning. We're simply just going to insert into the top of our chain, not the stitches over here, and we're going to make a slip stitch. Okay, So this is what it should look like when you get done with row 1. As you see, we have 3 and a chain space, 3 and a chain space, 3 chain space, 3 chain space. Perfect. So now we're going to move on to round 2. Now moving on to round 2, I turn my work like this. And you see our first little chain spaces right here. Now what I do is I go into this space and I make a slip stitch. So I'm going to pull through and pull through. Okay, so now we're going to start working right here in the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain up, we'll chain up 3 this time, chain 3. Now we're going to make 2 more double crochets into the same space. So there's 1 and 2. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can do granny squares. Me, I don't usually do a chain in the middle. So what we're gonna do, this is a start of our first corner, but we are not gonna finish working this yet. So now what we need to do is go into our next chain space. We're not gonna work into any of these stitches here. And we are just going to place 3 double crochets to make a cluster right here into our chain space. So there's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. Okay, so now we need to work our corner because we're in a corner space. So we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to work another cluster back into that same space. So we're going to place 3 double crochets right here into this space. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. Now we're not going to chain because we're going to go into our next corner space. So we're going to go directly in here and make 3 double crochets. And again, it's okay to pause the video while you're working your stitches. Everybody crochets at different paces, so don't let that bug you. Now we're going to chain up 1, and we need to work another cluster space right here in the corner. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so at this point we have 1 more chain space that we need to work a full corner, and then we need to finish this corner over here. Because remember, we have 4 corners in a square, and I'll explain more as we get into the next row. So right here, we're going to make our 3 double crochets. Just like that. Chain 1, 3 double crochets back into that same space. Okay. Now as you see, here's our chain 3 and our first little cluster. So we want to work 1 more cluster back into the same space that we had started in. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Now we need to finish off this corner, so we need to chain 1, okay? And into the top of our chain 3, so not these spaces here, but the chain 3, we're just going to make a slip stitch right into the top. And that is what the end of row 2 looks like. And now I'm going to show you row 3. And then that is basically where you guys should be able to continue to either grow your granny square a couple rows, make it bigger, smaller, whatever you want to do. There's so many options that you can do with a basic granny square. So let's go ahead and move on to round 3. Now for each row, I do like to turn my work. So we're always going to end right here next to a chain space. So we're going to turn our work. And you see our chain space right here. We're going to do what we did at row 2. So we're going to slip stitch into that and chain up 3. Perfect. You guys are doing so great. I'm so proud of you. Keep it up. You're doing amazing. So like before, we're only going to start half of our corners. So our corners are here, 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 and here. And as you see, we have an extra space in between our corners, and I'll show you what to do when we get there. But right now, we are going to start our corner space. So we're going to add 2 more double crochets back into that same space. Just like that. Now, as you see, we have our chain space right here. So we're just going to put a single cluster. So just 3 double crochets into that space, and then we'll move on. We don't need to chain and add another cluster because we only do that in the corners of our granny squares. And again, if you guys are basic, basic and new to crochet and you're doing all the basics, learning the basics, or even if you're advanced crocheter and you just like to do the basics, I love to do granny squares. Okay, so here we are back at our next corner. So we will place a cluster, so 3 double crochets, just like that, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets back into the same space. I'm so happy that we're doing this video because right now I'm actually working on a large granny square blanket. So I basically started with a square and just kept going, and I want it to be a queen size mattress. Okay, so here we have one side done. Now into this space, you will go ahead and do what we did here and just place your 3 double crochet clusters and then move on to the corner here. If it helps, you can put stitch markers in each of your corners so that you know where to do your first cluster, chain 1, and the same cluster back in there. I'm going to do one more side with you, and then I think you guys will be all good to go to start doing your granny squares. If you have any feedback though, if I went too fast, if it was too hard to understand, please do let me know in the comments down below. That really helps me out because then I know how to improve my videos for next time. So here's our cluster that we are not going to be chaining into. Okay. Now we're going to move on to this corner here and we will do our cluster. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So then, yeah, from here you would just continue on doing a cluster, your corner, a cluster, and then you need to finish this corner. And then as you keep going, the spaces in between will grow. So the next row you'll have 2 spaces where you will just put single cluster. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Again, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Subscribe to my channel if you feel inclined, and I will see you guys all next time for another tutorial or crochet chat here on Dream9 Design.